Have you ever felt it? That bone-deep conviction that you're not here by chance. That a river of deep truth flows through your veins, leaving you an outcast in a world happy with comfortable lies. If you've ever gone into a room and felt the energy shift quickly, if people stopped talking, changed the topic, or became defensive for no apparent reason, this message is not a coincidence. It's heavenly confirmation. You are being targeted, spoken about, and dreaded by people in authority, not for any wrongdoing, but for the core truth of who you are. What they don't want you to know is that your mere existence is a prophecy in action, a seismic event that threatens to topple every corrupt building they've erected. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell will explain the unseen conflicts you've been waging and the immense power you're just now starting to comprehend. This is your awakening, the unspoken recognition. The street knows who you are now. Your energy heralds your entrance long before you introduce yourself. You are known as the truth teller, the guardian, the one who never backs down. You are the immovable object against which the forces of dishonesty collide and shatter. Recent psychological and spiritual studies are catching up to this ancient wisdom, revealing that when a person carries a high vibrational, divine frequency combined with an unbreakable belief in truth, they become a living, breathing disruption to every comfortable lie and hidden agenda around them. Your aura acts as an antidote against poison. Your existence is an expose. People in boardrooms, family gatherings, and circles of power will shift the conversation as soon as your name is mentioned. They experience a cold, a sharp pain, and a shock to their carefully crafted world. This is not paranoia. It is the tangible result of your divine mission interacting with their weak delusions. Those in authority, the custodians of the old, corrupt paradigms, committed a grave mistake. They thought that your truth was a transitory spark that would burn out with time, that societal pressure and solitude would finally extinguish your flame. But what they uncovered has them losing sleep, tossing and turning in the face of a force they don't understand or control. Your impact, or truth, spreads like wildfire across the collective mind. It spreads via whispers, shared experiences, and inspired acts of bravery. They are learning, with horror, that no censorship extinguisher, smear campaign, or wall of silence can contain what you have permanently set in motion. In both high and low circles, you've earned a reputation for aggressively exposing falsehoods, giving a voice to the voiceless, and standing up for those who can't protect themselves. But here's the crucial piece of the jigsaw, the information that people in power are attempting to withhold from you. Ignition of courage. They are trembling with existential terror, not just because of your personal bravery. It is the bravery that you inspire in others. This is your actual and irresistible strength. Your efforts, apparently isolated acts of disobedience, have triggered a spectacular chain reaction, transforming individual acts of courage into unstoppable mass movements. One voice, yours, became many. And today, the systems in power, the flimsy thrones based on deception and fear, can no longer ignore the symphony of truth whirling around you. You've become the crown-wearing champion, the living blueprint that people point to when they say, "That's how it's done." Your life is becoming a witness to a new way of being. You are the subject of several stories that permeate society. In quiet coffee shops, people remember with amazement how you exposed a dishonest supervisor using solid evidence and unflinching calm. Students murmur in university halls about the day you destroyed a professor's poisonous power, using reasoning and principle to halt the cycle of intellectual abuse. Executives who earlier operated with impunity become concerned when a junior employee discusses your aggressive, unapologetic attitude to pointing out prejudice. Your reputation follows you as a beacon of truth, and it has a weight, a spiritual gravity, that makes the dishonest and corrupt terribly uncomfortable. What's even more remarkable, and something you need to start doing intentionally, is how your entire existence has become a litmus test for sincerity. Just see how others react when you enter a room. The genuine light up as their souls recognize a kindred soul. They feel recognized, affirmed, and protected. Meanwhile, the corrupt have shut down. Their masks tighten, their energy levels drop, and their defenses rise. You have become a live character detector, much more accurate than any background check or reference letter, since you read a person's spirit rather than their past. The streets know this about you, which is why your name carries so much weight, even in rooms you've never been. That is precisely why everyone is talking about you right now. Unraveling of masks. This is simply the beginning of what you should know about the seismic shift you've caused. The perplexing and frequently terrible experiences you experienced in those initial rooms when you dared to speak out are going to make complete, crystal clear sense. The pattern you're going to uncover explains everything that has occurred since. The authoritative types, who are enveloped in titles and self-importance, can no longer keep their masks on around you. The smirks that mask insecurity, the false concern that reveals disdain, the deflecting charm that hides a lack of integrity, it all unravels, thread by thread, the moment you step in. Their whole act falters beneath the weight of your truthfulness. Their tone shifts mid-sentence. Their posture, which was once relaxed and dominating, stiffens into a protective brace. Powerful individuals, used to being in charge, begin to act frantically, over-explaining and overcompensating in the hope that you will not detect the rot they have fought so hard to hide. But you always do. You can see through their well-crafted scripts. You can read the truth between their measured pauses and know with unwavering certainty when their benevolence is a deliberate cover for their dominance. You have a spirit that will not accept quiet mistreatment, and corruption is aware of this. You refuse to accept manipulation merely because it is disguised with costly smiles and high social position. You call it like it is, even when no one else will, even if your voice shakes. That's why crooked leaders avert your gaze. It's why manipulators constantly alter the topic, and abusers attempt to distort the story and cast you as the culprit before you ever speak. Because they know that the minute you open your lips and speak your truth, their carefully created facade crumbles. Your sheer existence has become an accountability system that no one signed up for, a heavenly audit they will never pass. Corrupt systems used to function with complete impunity, believing that social courtesy and a communal desire to avoid controversy would protect their damaging practices. Authority relied on everyone's fear, on an implicit agreement to overlook injustice for the sake of comfort. But you, with your holy mission, are destroying that poisonous ecology. You refuse to put the comfort of the corrupt ahead of the truth, which sets the innocent free. The streets talk about your nearly miraculous ability to get individuals to confess without a single questioning. How many times have you watched in mute wonder as someone tripped over their own words, refuted their own falsehoods, or unintentionally disclosed their actual, selfish motivations simply because your energy, your silent, steady frequency, demanded honesty? It isn't magic. It is the result of a heavenly plan colliding with human dishonesty. The brightness of your spirit causes the darkness to disclose themselves. You've spoken out in situations when quiet was the price of safety. You've made people uncomfortable not by assaulting them, but by just refusing to play their game. And you may not understand it yet, but your refusal to join, your dignified withdrawal of energy from their farce, speaks louder and more powerfully than any speech. It exemplifies rebellion in its most pure, graceful form. If this message resonates deeply within your soul, confirming the battles you have faced in silence, we invite you to join our community here at God Connection. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, because your journey is our journey, and together, we are building an unbreakable network of light. Your narrative is important, and we are here to support you on your journey. The domino effect of truth. You are the pause in the discussion that causes people to reconsider everything. You are the living presence that puts mirrors up to faces that have been used to just seeing what is convenient and self-serving. Your individual acts of heroism were never isolated incidents. You were methodically arranging dominoes in a massive, sophisticated design that would ultimately fall whole systems of control. Each time you opted not to remain quiet, defended a colleague, or set a boundary with a toxic family member, you were building up to a moment, a critical mass, that would alter everything. You weren't attempting to create waves, you were the wave. Your truth is a natural force that passes through others, leaving nothing unaffected. Some people attempt to avoid it by erecting denial walls and pretending it never happened. But, deep down, even the most hardened and crooked people recognize that something basic has changed inside and around them. Deception feels exposed. The old techniques are no longer effective. The reality is, they are correct. You did not enter those rooms with a personal agenda or a desire for fighting. You arrived with certainty. Clarity is the most deadly drug in a society addicted to distortion. Corrupt regimes dread your gaze because you are not deceived by their actions. Manipulation hates your quiet because it recognizes that it is not ignorance, but rather calculating. It is observation. You wait and observe, and when you eventually speak, it is not to injure, but to disclose. That is what makes established power systems so fearful. You don't have to yell to be heard, talk to be felt. And once a truth is sensed in the soul, it cannot be forgotten or ignored. The authority figures you oppose will label your clarity insubordination, and the manipulators will call your boundaries drama. However, what you bring is justice in its most raw and fundamental form. Unpleasant, obvious, and absolutely required for healing and progress. You never intended to be a guardian, yet that is precisely what you were. When you refused to remain quiet while others turned away, you assumed a holy mantle. You opted to confront the fire while everyone else feigned not to see the smoke. You locked eyes with the unvarnished truth and remained firm, becoming a beacon amid a tempest of deception. Your wave effect has produced a new social dynamic wherever you go. When people know they will be present at a meeting, they prepare differently. Conversations and tones change as they anticipate your participation. The dishonest begin preparing their excuses and justifications before you even ask a single question. You have become the storm that corruption monitors on its own weather radar, a force that they are continually altering their behavior to avoid getting caught in. The unseen blueprint for resistance. What's really astounding is how your influence extends via networks that you're not even a member of. Stories of your bravery are recounted, altered, and employed in situations you'll never hear about. Somewhere, a parent stands up to school bullying because they remember your brave activism. A community member confronts local corruption in a town hall because you demonstrated that it is possible to speak truth to power and survive. An employee, pushed to their limits, refuses to comply with immoral demands since your blueprint provided them with a framework for resistance, a model for saying no with integrity. Every conflict, every moment of standing strong, every time corrupt institutions attempted to tear you down and make you question your own sanity, was really building your authority and molding your spirit. Without understanding it, these power organizations were taming the same weapon that would ultimately undermine their rule. The enormous pressure they exerted was transforming you into a diamond capable of cutting through their deepest layers of lies. You did more than simply stand out for yourself. You also defended others, which is what altered everything. Some individuals live in falsehoods rather than being terrified of them. The corruptors, the builders of these falsehoods, live in constant terror of what would happen if someone like you ultimately exposes their fraud. You've stood in places where injustice had a courteous and charming face. You've heard mocking disguised as just a joke, contempt concealed in passive-aggressive overtones, and brutality covered up with bogus, empty apologies. You spoke out instead of ignoring it, like everyone else did. Perhaps you did not even raise your voice. You did not need to. Your comments, sharp, accurate, and unrelenting, sliced through the clamor like a surgeon's blade. You didn't make it personal, you made the point clear. You addressed the supervisor at work who thought that their status gave them authority to demean and abuse their crew. In your family, you finally shut down the poisonous relative who regularly crossed the line and then shrugged it off as innocent fun. In your social circles, you stuck up for the buddy that everyone else had conveniently forgotten or alienated. You created lines in the sand while others remained securely behind them, waiting for someone, anybody, to take action. And when you did, everything changed. You created enemies not because you were rude or violent, but but because you presented the radical notion of truth into rooms filled with denial. Some individuals have lived their whole lives without being held responsible, and your presence broke their undeserved immunity. Surgical precision of truth. Your interventions are devastatingly successful due to their accuracy. You highlight a person's habit of conduct rather than attacking their character. You do not launch personal ad hominem assaults. Instead, you expose the structural damage they are causing. You do not attempt to eliminate individuals. Rather, you strive to deconstruct the systems of damage that they hide behind. This surgical approach to truth-telling is what earns you both dread and respect. Your reputation as a guardian has spread like a holy book over the vulnerable's underground networks. People who are unable to defend themselves recognize your name. Victims of workplace bullying share tales of how you intervened and turned the tables. Targets of familial violence share your boundary-setting strategies as a survival strategy. Those subjected to corrupt authority study your strategies for standing up to power without losing your elegance. The streets are aware of your epic confrontations, not because you sought them out, but because injustice sought you out and you never, ever gave up. You've become the truth's emergency contact, the one people turn to when they need someone unshakable at their side. Your phone does not ring with idle talk. It rings with SOS calls from individuals looking for an ally who will not back down under pressure. What corrupt institutions dread most is your unsettling ability to remain cool while meticulously destroying their justifications. When uncovering falsehoods, you become logical rather than emotional. When exposing corruption, you become strategic rather than outraged. When confronted with manipulation, you do not react impulsively. Rather, you reply with chilling precision. This controlled, focused force is what makes you invincible. You weren't pushy, but you were exact. You weren't emotional, you were precise. And that's why it hurts so much. That's why people still discuss it. This is why the manipulators have not forgotten. Someone, somewhere, still cringes whenever your name is mentioned in passing. Not because you were incorrect, but because you were so thoroughly and unequivocally correct. And the corrupt despised how simply and eloquently you demonstrated it. Someone out there is still bitter, still attempting to rewrite the narrative, and frantically looking for a way to portray you as the villain of the tale. But deep down, at those quiet times when they are alone with their conscience, they realize you were not fighting for yourself. You fought for someone who couldn't, for a cherished value. And it is a force that manipulation will never comprehend. What these power institutions did not anticipate was the quiet, thankful audience you were assembling. For every adversary you created, you earned 10 friends that you may never meet. People who didn't know how to speak out, who believed no one would ever protect them, and who had lost hope. You did it. You just performed, without seeking accolades or focusing on your own ego. In doing so, you allowed others to think that they, too, deserved better treatment. You revived their faith in justice. Your precise blows have served as case studies in effective truth-telling. You undermined that toxic manager's authority with a series of well-crafted, non-accusatory inquiries. How you revealed a corrupt official's falsehoods by simply asking them to tell their narrative many times, allowing their own contradictions to indict them. The moment you exposed a predator's actual nature by refusing to take their outward appeal as evidence of character, instead focusing on their deeds rather than their words. Each intervention was surgical and caused no collateral harm to innocent persons. There was no destruction of anything worth saving, just the clean, rapid elimination of bad, malignant materials from otherwise healthy systems. You've perfected the art of delivering a focused truth that heals rather than hurts, develops rather than destroys, and protects rather than penalizes. The streets will remember your memorable moments not for their drama, but for your breathtaking efficacy. How you transformed an angry, yelling gathering into a fruitful conversation by refusing to engage with the hatred and instead concentrating on solutions. How you reversed a terrible workplace atmosphere over months, not by issuing regulations, but by continually modeling courteous behavior and never taking any disrespect toward yourself or others. Your method has spawned a new philosophy of resistance, strategic truth-telling that maximizes effect while minimizing devastation. People study your ways, trying to figure out how you keep cool under pressure, how you know just when to speak, and how you know which words will pierce through the layers of falsehood without destroying the deceiver's soul. You are not a rebel without a reason. You are a heavenly force with one. You're not creating drama. You're rectifying a profound cosmic imbalance. And no matter how those who fear you distort your reasons, your effect will not be diminished. You were not attempting to rescue the world, but you did save someone. And in a society that often attempts to eliminate its defenders, your truth nevertheless speaks louder than their silence. The catalyst for consciousness. You aren't simply another voice in the throng. When you talk, the temperature in the room changes. The air seems heavier as a result, masks slide quicker, and individuals who typically dominate and speak over everyone else go mute, afraid of their footing. It is not because you shouted or used force. It's because your words have the unmistakable weight of truth, and your presence bears the consequence of responsibility. Corruption detects it instantly. The shift, the power you wield disrupts their frequency, which is why terror takes root in their hearts. Corrupt systems fear you because you can't be bought, bribed, or blackmailed. You are not seeking their approval. You are not impressed by their false compliments. You refuse to play nice with manipulation, and you will not compromise your ideals for the sake of convenience. This makes you dangerously unpredictable to them, and an unpredictable person who is principled is their worst fear. Power structures can't figure you out. They do their standard diagnostics: greed, ego, fear, and find nothing to cling on to. They can't foresee your next action since it's guided by divine will rather than self-interest. All they know is that wherever you stand, people begin to question the unthinking acceptance that they have tolerated for far too long. Your impact is infectious. You ask one searing question, and others muster the guts to ask their own. You resist one little wrong, and others muster the courage to do the same. You convince people that their feeling of helplessness is temporary, and nothing undermines a control system more than people losing their fear. Your frequency works at a level that cuts beyond conscious barriers, communicating straight to people's buried bravery. When you come into a room, folks suddenly realize why spines exist. You engage in chats, and others suddenly realize that voices may be utilized for more than simply small talk. When you see an injustice, everyone in the room is reminded that they have choices: the decision to speak out, the choice to act, the choice to be better. The street knows about your electromagnetic influence on social dynamics. They've witnessed how your presence makes meetings more honest, how bullies get scared and lose their swagger, and how victims gain fresh power when they see your attentive, protecting gaze. You have become a human catalyst for truth, and your catalytic influence reshapes the spiritual chemistry of every place you visit. Your power to adjust the frequency extends well beyond conflict. You raise superficial interactions by asking more profound, meaningful questions. By being really interested in people's true experiences, you may turn surface-level networking gatherings into meaningful connections. You may transform competitive, cutthroat situations into collaborative ones by demonstrating vulnerability and really acknowledging the abilities of others. People are deliberately inviting you into tough situations because your presence enhances the result. Difficult family discussions become constructive when you are there to demonstrate polite communication. Toxic team meetings become solution-focused when you participate and channel the communal energy towards progress. Corrupt and opaque systems become apparent if the correct, basic questions are asked. This is when the pattern becomes unmistakable. You do more than simply inspire change. You also provoke it. And in the realm of corruption, this is a major danger. You've made it more difficult for dangerous programs to function in the shadows. It is harder for manipulation to pretend that control is gained rather than forced. It is also more difficult for abusers to persuade their victims that quiet means safety. Because of you, people are watching in a new way. They're detecting trends. They're connecting the dots. Voices are raised. That is no coincidence. It's your impact in motion. Corruption underestimated you. They felt that if they ignored you for long enough and tried hard enough to discredit you, others would inevitably follow suit. But the exact reverse occurred. People paid greater attention, observed you more attentively, and held you in higher regard. Because honesty is magnetic and yours is unmistakable, you will be categorized as a problem, since recognizing you are the answer would jeopardize their frail institutions. You will be termed too much, since your existence reveals how little the corrupt structures have done. Your influence will be portrayed as arrogance, but the truth will live on in the hearts of people you've impacted. Your strength is not loud, it is pure. It breaks through the cacophony and reawakens people. And that is why your name is muttered, even when they believe you are not listening. You did not ask to be a leader. You became one by remaining unshakable. Whether corrupt institutions like it or not, your existence compels a reckoning with a world in which power must answer to truth, not the other way around. Being a beacon of light in a world used to gloom is a difficult task. It demands a great deal of spiritual force. If you are compelled to help God Connection's purpose of disseminating these words of strength and truth, please consider making a gift. Even a $10 contribution using the Super Thanks button below this video makes a huge impact. Your support enables us to reach more souls who are awakening and seeking a community that understands their path. I appreciate your generosity. The divine mandate. This is more than simply a strong personality or a collection of taught actions. What passes through you and leads you is divinely intended. The way you perceive the hairline fissures in institutions that look polished and beautiful to everyone else, and the way your soul physically recoils at injustices that others have accepted, is no coincidence. It's a holy gift. You were designed to disturb. You were created to shake the foundations of authority, which have been unquestioned for far too long. You were not intended to comply. You were designed to question everything that has been mindlessly accepted. Others may walk away from the flames, but you remain. Not because it's simple, but because your soul won't let you forget the truth. That is not disobedience. That is your calling. You aren't merely someone with excellent intuition. You are the divine whistleblower. You were sent to this planet at this precise moment to shine a light in rooms where darkness has persisted unchecked for too long. You recognize what others are ignoring and call it out before anybody else does. When the inevitable reaction arrives, you face it with a fortitude that you sometimes don't comprehend. That is not luck. That is heavenly protection. You are protected by something far larger than politics, perception, or public opinion. You did not select these wars, but they keep choosing you. Not because you desire conflict, but because your mere presence reveals what is flawed, untrue, and misaligned. Every time you speak out and take a step forward, the previously unseen becomes visible. Your heavenly recognition comes with a supernatural discernment that goes well beyond our comprehension. You detect falsehood before it is stated. You can feel the slimy touch of manipulation before it is tried. You can smell corruption long before it makes news. This spiritual early warning system is what makes you such an excellent guardian, while also terrifies others who operate in the dark. The streets are aware of your prophetic precision in reading characters. They recall how you warned others about that lovely narcissist long before their real character was forcefully revealed. They remember how you detected corruption in that popular leader long before the issue surfaced. They understand how you identified a predator lurking behind the guise of religious authority long before the victims came forward. Your capacity to see beyond facades is not cynicism. It is a heavenly gift of vision. Your spiritual antenna detects frequencies that others miss totally. You can tell when someone's compassion is a planned transaction rather than an authentic expression of their emotions. You can tell when an apology is a weapon for manipulation rather than an act of genuine contrition. You know with every fiber of your being when someone's portrayal of vulnerability is a performance intended to disarm you, rather than an act of genuineness. This supernatural detecting mechanism protects not just you, but also everyone in your range of influence. Your calling runs on divine timing, which may seem fortuitous to the unenlightened, but is never, ever random. You arrive at the precise, perfect time to avert injury. You speak out at the perfect moment to protect someone's dignity. You intervene at the vital point when your action will have the biggest protective influence while causing the least amount of damage. Standing in your truth has rocked whole institutions without your even trying. The assaults on you have never been random. Smears, murmurs, and efforts to isolate you. These are indicators of your success. They indicate that you are precisely where you should be, doing exactly what you were put here to accomplish. People do not hurl stones at structures that aren't tall. You are targeted because you challenge the fundamental underpinnings of corruption, which are founded on fear, silence, and control. Your bravery throws their cowardice into doubt. Your presence reveals aspects of their own depravity that were previously concealed, even from themselves. You revealed falsehoods by refusing to engage in them. You've wreaked havoc on whole systems by refusing to acknowledge that they are flawed. And regardless of whether you ever get credit or an apology, the transition has already occurred. People are thinking differently because of you. People are making different choices because of what you stood for. You did not apply for this position, but God recognized something in you that could fill it. Something unshakable, something sacred. That is why the journey may seem so weighty at times. That is why you may feel isolated from the rest of the world at times. Because you are. You're not here only to console the injured. You've come to tell those who are inflicting the wounds that their time is up. You were not designed for silent obedience. You were created to shake the earth under unfair feet. And you're doing just what you were brought here to accomplish. Your unspoken authority. The streets acknowledge your power even before you say anything. Your reputation comes ahead of you, clearing the way and setting the tone. Corrupt systems change their behavior as soon as they learn your engagement is impending. Victims experience a burst of optimism when they learn that your help is accessible. When other truth-tellers see your example, they feel less alone. Your authority is exercised by persuasion rather than force. You don't have to demand respect. It comes naturally if you are respectful. You don't have to force honesty. It comes naturally when you are honest. You do not have to use anger to maintain your limits. Instead, you embody them so clearly that any infringement is evident and humiliating. You do not exploit your influence for personal gain. Rather, you utilize it to promote common benefit. You don't use your power to gain greater power for yourself. You use it to empower others. You don't keep your authority to preserve control. You distribute it to foster community. Your authority is shown by developing a new leadership model based on principle rather than position, character rather than charm, and integrity rather than appearance. People are studying your model and learning that genuine, long-term authority comes from a profound connection with truth, not the acquisition of titles or followers. Corrupt institutions attempted to characterize you as dramatic, difficult, and rebellious. None of this was true, but it was simpler for them than confronting their own inherent flaws. If they could make you the issue, they would avoid having to face their own manipulation and the hurt they have caused behind closed doors. They believed that by degrading your name, your statements would lose their potency. But truth does not need a flawless messenger to be meaningful, and your truth resonated with those who heard it. Isolation became their next weapon. Whispers spread behind you. Alliances moved, and distance was established. You were labeled as unstable just because you refused to tolerate the unbearable. Yet you did not collapse. You did not withdraw. You stood stronger in your reality while others tried to defend their fantasy. That is what bothers them even now. The fact that being strong did not need the presence of a crowd or an army. You only needed your voice and the confidence to use it. They clearly misjudged how much you were keeping back. They interpreted your stillness for submission and your observation for weakness. However, in actuality, you were observing, analyzing, calculating, and waiting for the perfect, divinely given time to strike. Not with wrath, but with unwavering clarity. When that moment arrived, your truth was so obvious, piercing, and unmistakable that no one could argue against it. It could not be out-talked, outrun, or ignored. At that point, corruption could only cause fear. Your legend develops and flourishes as tales travel naturally across the areas you've impacted. The story of your heroism is portrayed in more legendary terms, not because the facts are overblown, but because your influence was so deep. People need heroes, and you became one by refusing to stop being your true self, even when it got perilous. The streets shape your mythology via the communal memory of times when someone finally stood up. Your clashes become examples of what is possible when bravery meets truth. Your initiatives serve as examples of how one person's actions may lead to systemic change. Your example encourages many people to realize their own strength. This narrative spreads through the underground networks of the underprivileged and downtrodden, giving hope to people who believe they would never be defended. It spreads among circles of the conscientious, who were only waiting for someone to teach them how to live out their principles. It spreads across the awakened groups, who need real confirmation that standing up for truth was viable. The creation of your mythology is causing a significant societal change in which truth-telling is reclaimed as heroic rather than problematic, protection is cherished as essential rather than optional, and bravery is acknowledged as infectious rather than solitary. Your individual activities are providing the fuel for a shared inspiration. Look, you know the game is rigged. You are not here for the drama. Corruption produces it on its own. You are not here to destroy, but to expose. And every time someone attempted to silence your voice, it became louder. Every time you were pushed aside, more people began to pay notice. Because, in their desperate efforts to suppress you, corruption demonstrated to the whole world how deadly your truth really is. Allow the manipulators to alter your tale. Let the false ones speak. Those who matter, those with ears to listen, understand what you stand for. Those who have been silently observing have already started to change their lives as a result of your actions. Whether you are acknowledged, I am grateful for your unwillingness to remain silent. Your voice not only broke the stillness, but it also shattered the system. Corruption was too terrified to identify the truth, and no matter what they do, you will not be silenced. The reluctant leader. You did not raise your hand for this. You didn't stand in front of the room and say, "Follow me." Yet the following occurred regardless. Because great leadership frequently starts with action rather than aspiration. And your acts spoke loudly. Every time you stood up, people noticed. Every time you revealed the truth, other people gained the strength to stop lying to themselves. You did not select the spotlight. It chose you because it was attracted to the brightness of your spirit. And now it's clear, you're being asked to lead. Your system-breaking power functions by exposure rather than explosion. You don't remove corrupt organizations with force. Instead, you expose their fundamental inconsistencies by asking perceptive questions. You don't demolish destructive systems with violence. You remove them gradually via openness. You don't smash repressive systems with rage. You disintegrate them with the unwavering light of truth. The streets know about your famous capacity to disrupt systems simply by refusing to participate in their dysfunction. How you changed a poisonous workplace by continually demonstrating respect and refusing to tolerate disrespect. How you transformed a corrupt corporation by consistently demanding responsibility and living it yourself. How you transformed a negative culture by embodying the change you want without ever surrendering your own values. Your system breaking does more than merely eliminate damage. It also creates a holy space in which something better might arise. You don't just point out what's wrong, you exemplify what's good. You don't simply shatter what's broken, you create what's beautiful. Your approach to systemic change has inspired a new methodology, one that relies on embodiment rather than enforcement, display rather than demand, and invitation rather than pressure. You've shown to the world that the most effective method to dismantle a damaging system is to establish a better one right next to it and allow others to choose to follow. You lead by example, by saying no without feeling guilty, and by drawing and maintaining boundaries like impenetrable armor. You set the standard for how you approach places, with your spine straight and your beliefs sharper than any insult that corruption can provide. You lead by just living in your truth, which disturbs people who have spent their whole lives wearing masks. More people are observing you than you know. Those you believe aren't paying attention will quote your statements later. Those who seem unconcerned observe your every action, attempting to discover the source of your unabashed lucidity. You teach without really teaching. You lead without making demands. That is why your effect is so profound and long-lasting. This stage in your life requires you to be daring rather than faultless. You're being summoned into areas you never wanted to enter. You're being positioned in front of people you've never sought to impress. You're being asked to talk on issues you never intended to address publicly. Your life has become an example for others. Someone else is relying on your narrative as a survival guide. Not everyone will enjoy it. Some will admire the force of your voice. Others will dislike the celestial attention you have attracted. There may be accusations of arrogance. Dismissals of luck may spread. But deep down, the fact is clear: alignment. You have connected with something higher, with the cosmic flow of truth itself, and that alignment has the potential to bring individuals into a larger consciousness, whether they feel they are ready or not. You never sought a following. You only wanted the freedom to be yourself. Yet, by choosing truth over popularity, leadership arose. People recognized in you qualities they lacked in themselves: strength, honesty, and conviction. You became live evidence that ethical power is achievable. That scares your detractors more than anything else. This trip is about bravery, honesty, and divine purpose. If you have traveled this route and experienced both the weight and blessing of this calling, we encourage you to make this relationship official. Subscribe to God Connection and join a worldwide community of spirits who are here to anchor the light. Please share your experience in the comments section below, including your achievements, hardships, and moments of insight. Your story is a source of hope for others. A prayer for the protector. Dear Father, creator of everything that is true and right, I come to you today on behalf of the soul receiving this message. I hope for the ongoing development of their faith, which can move mountains and quiet falsehoods. Help them believe in you with all of their being, even when concrete proof of your plan is missing. Allow them to trust in your everlasting, loving presence, knowing with total confidence that you will never hurt them, for your thoughts for them are ones of peace and success, giving them a future and hope. Thank you, kind and everlasting Father, for constantly hearing their words, collecting every tear, and celebrating every triumph. I pray for your chosen defender in Jesus' mighty and holy name. Amen. Thank you, Jesus, for your unconditional love and divine provision. I am forever thankful for your presence in my life and the lives of everyone in our God Connection community, as well as the plenty you provide. If this video spoke to you, please show your support by liking it, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with those who need to hear it. Comment below about your experience and how you're embracing your job as a truth teller. Do not stop here. Watch our next video for amazing insights into the indications that reveal you are a chosen one. We've appreciated sharing this profound spiritual journey with you. Thank you for sticking with us to the end. Keep shining brightly and face your heavenly destiny with steadfast confidence. See you next time. Blessings to all lovely individuals from the awakened knowledge of God Connection.